Ndarama, Turkana. It means there's no common, there's no overlap, right? Meanwhile, you, if you say, you are saying 10,000, me, I have only 6.5. Will you continue negotiating? You say, this is too expensive. So there will always be an element of overlap for the negotiation to take place so that there is possibility of coming to an agreement. This is maybe I'm not explaining it very well. I will have to think another way of doing it. But you see, in negotiations, this is very, very critical. In collective agreements, negotiations in collective agreements is very, very critical, this principle. Because if there is no common interest between the two, there will be no agreement. Who listens to news? You listen about the war between Israel and the Palestinians in Gaza? You do. Okay? Do you see that they are failing to agree because of two major things? Netanyahu, the prime minister, and his group, they are saying, mukumvesa hapa, ifeyo will only agree to a ceasefire only after we have defeated all of them. How? They say we will only agree if you have defeated the Palestinians. Whereas the Palestinians are saying, no, stop fighting, then we'll give you the hostages. Netanyahu says the hostages can only come after we have defeated you. Is there common ground there? It's same like this. Netanyahu is saying, we have 10,000, but if you don't have 9,000, don't care. We are not going to agree anything. And these people are saying, no, we have 6,000, but we are prepared to pay 6.5. There's no common. You see, the issue is release of the hostages, isn't it? The Israelis are saying, we'll only force you to release the hostages when you are all defeated, and we are not going to stop the war until you are defeated. While the others, they say, no, stop the war, then we are going to do what? To release the hostages. No, there is no common ground. And they are right, the Palestinians, I think they are right, because if they release the hostages after they have temporarily stopped, because Israelis say, we will not cease fire, we will continue, then what will be the use of releasing the hostages if the war will continue? There is no common ground. I don't know how this is going to end. So, in principle, this is very critical. If I haven't explained it properly now, I will think of another way of explaining at another time. But in collective bargaining, there must always be one. There will be an offer from one side and acceptance from the other. There must be some overlap of interests. If the interests are not overlapping, it won't work. Normally, you have a package of issues which one should give away to the other. When that happens, then possibility of collective bargaining agreement is there. Is that clear? Maybe not clear. Is it clear? You have understood. The main thing is there must be common interest. If there is no common interest, if you have an employer and an employee, what will be the common interest? The employer wants to make profit. The employee wants what? The job. Now, the employer wants to make profit. The employee wants for that job better pay. So there is overlap. Where will the pay come from? It's from the profit, isn't it? From making profit. If they don't make profit, are they going to pay? No. So there must be a common interest. So when we talk of, now we can talk of trade unions. We can now talk of trade unions as a new subject. We have been talking of trade unions in passing, but now we can talk of trade unions as a subject. What we want is to see how unions grow, the aim and objectives of the union, as well as their functions and the role they play. What is a trade union? I think now you already know. It is an organization formed by workers who join together and use their strength in numbers to have their voice heard in a workplace. In other words, a trade union is an organization made up of members whose membership must be made up of mainly workers. So you remember I was talking about associations and trade unions. Those who are in the profession, like doctors, they say, we have formed our own association, and this and that, but it's a trade union. They just want to distinguish themselves from a trade union. Through the union, workers have the ability to negotiate from a position of strength with employers over terms and conditions of service, including wages, benefits, workplace health and safety, job training, and other work-related issues. When we say from a position of strength, what we have is that, one, if there is an organization and it has workers, the workers normally outnumber the representatives of the organization. Is that not so? One organization might have maybe 5 top managers, 6 managers, but maybe with 100 employees. When one employee has a grudge or grievance, you know what a grudge or grievance is? That one employee to go to the manager and complain will mean nothing. But if that one employee has a grudge and another one has another grudge, another one has another grudge, some of the grudges may be similar, may be related. Those grudges, when they all come together to talk to the employer, it will be they will be complaining using the numbers as their strength. So trade unions are deliberately organized to make sure that they can actually negotiate with the employers using their numbers from a position of strength. One of the trade union main aims is to protect and advance the interests of the members in the workplace. Most trade unions are independent of any employer. In fact, most, almost all. Here, we have never what we call promoted as government. We have never promoted what they call joint consultative committees. In other countries, what they have done is they have what we call, here we have trade unions, right? Here, that's Malawi. But in other countries, they have joint consultative committees. JCCs. The problem with joint consultative committees is that they are groups of employees formed by the organization. So, if this group, this one, the workers form it themselves, form union. But here, employers form it. What is the problem there? If the unions form their own group against the employers, and then the employers, in preference, they form joint consultative committees themselves to be talking to them, what is the problem there? Do you think there is a problem? There is it? What problem would you see? Conflict. Yes. What would you call? If this is formed by the employer, it is going to appoint its own, what you call, mastuji yao. Mastuji mmaziwa mastuji. People who are already on their side to be the leaders. They will appoint their own people to be leaders in joint consultative committees. So that when they are talking on behalf of the workers, they are talking same language as the employers. And in most cases, you find that they come and appoint people like foremen, supervisors and so on, to be the leaders here, to be talking to management. You remember that list I gave you of people from board of directors and so on? These, the people like foremen, artists, those who are skilled technicians and so on, they are supervisors. They are the ones who are going to be the leaders in this group. So when it comes to talking to management, are they not part of management? They are, isn't it? They are closer to management than the workers. But here, the people who will be leaders is the majority that will appoint them through democratic means. They will not say, oh, this one is a foreman, this one. No. They want someone who can talk for them from the point of view of strength. So the trade union main aim will be to protect and advance the interests of the members in the workplace, while a joint consultative committee will not have that in mind. The interest will be to protect their own positions. Zikumveka? Right? So, what is the main function of the trade union? In our own context, an organization formed by workers who join together and use their strength in numbers to have their voice heard. Its main function will be the ability to negotiate from a position of strength. And that list of issues they will be negotiating, we have repeated it so many times. I think it should remain in your mind. Wages, benefits, workplace health and safety, job training, and other work-related issues. I repeat them so that you can always remember this. That's the main function. The other big activity that the trade unions will invariably be involved in is conducting collective bargaining for better pay and conditions of work. Collective bargaining. That issue which I was trying to explain, collective bargaining. We'll look at it maybe at some depth at some point when I can probably explain better. So, how does a trade union grow? This one is also important. First of all, we say that at some point we are going to talk about the ILO and how it operates and how it affects our own performance as government. Now the ILO they come up with what they call conventions and recommendations. I'm just mentioning them in passing because I just want you to know that every worker is given freedom of association and the ability to organize. Every worker, you are free to join a trade union and you are free not to join. This is where the problem is. So how do trade unions grow? If you give them freedom that the people should either join or not join. First of all, when you join a union, the union will be asking you to pay what we call subscription, isn't it? You pay, I know you have you been working before? No? Yeah, when you start work, you see, what do you want to become, my friend? When you finish school, you don't know yet.
A photographer.
Yeah, there will be also unions for photographers. There's NAMISA. NAMISA? You call it NAMISA? Ed, NAMISA?
I don't know, but I know Photographers Union of Malawi.
Yes, there is a union. NAMISA is for the journalists, eh? You know the journalists? But if you are going to join for Photographers Union, they are going to ask you to pay something to them. So that in case you have got a problem with your employer or something, you can actually use the union to negotiate for yourself. So, what we are saying, let me just try and see if it can show a little bit more. See here, is that where we are? No, we have passed it. How does the union grow? So, in a way of explanation, we say that most trade unions grew during the era of, I think, 19th century to the 20th century. In this era was primarily driven by poor working conditions, low wages, and long working hours. First of all, employers employed people. People who got employed were working, one, they had poor working conditions. Secondly, low wages and also long working hours. As individuals, when they tried to speak to the employer, it was very difficult to change from what was happening at the time. So they started agitating among themselves to say, how are we going to make sure that our concerns are actually met? So the hardships that happened gave the workers the motivation to agitate and form associations or unions to speak for themselves from the point of strength as united people. In fact, what used to happen under the Industrial Revolution is that people were starting to make, to have companies. Like, I can have money, start making shoes. You understand? If I start making shoes, when I make money, more shoes, more people start buying from me. I wanted some assistant, handy, to help me making shoes, isn't it? So I got people who were also interested in making shoes to come and work for me. Some people came and said, oh, our son also wants to know how to make shoes so that later on he can also make shoes. So that's how the relationship started growing. So people bring one child, one son, another son, to make more shoes and sell them. But as they were working under poor working conditions, they were being paid low wages, and they worked long hours. Nothing was guiding them. So as a result, they started discussing together to say, no. When each one of us goes to our employer to say, can you improve our working conditions, our wages, and also the hours of work? It's not working. Why can't we come together and we face him together as a group? That's how now associations were being formed. In the latter part of the 20th and 19th and 20th century, during the Industrial Revolution, companies wanted to grow as economies were also growing. You know, if you were making shoes, you started making more shoes. During Industrial Revolution, there were more people doing manufacturing and so on. And then growth was in full swing. People were prospering. As a result, trade unions were allowed to grow as the economies also grew. And the unions began to thrive, especially when their members, that's workers, offered better productivity in return for better conditions of work. So when these people started coming together as a group, you know what was happening between the employers and the employees? The employers were saying, if you want more wages, what are you going to give us? If we give you more wages, what are you going to give us? And that was a very critical question, because they must be give and take. If you want more wages, what are you going to give us? Now, one of the issues they said they can give is productivity. They were saying, okay, if I'm making shoes, I make shoes per week, right? That's one person. He says, I will make shoes 60 per week. But if you give me more wages, I will make 75 shoes per week. If the market is good, will the employer accept that offer? If there is more market for the shoes, there's no poor market, but there's good market for the shoes. The worker says, okay, give me more wages. I was earning 10,000, but now give me 11,000. And then the employer says, okay, if you give me 11,000, what will you give me? And he says, I'll give you 75 shoes per week. Will the employer accept? Yes, because now his production will increase because the employee has offered higher productivity for himself. But this is being negotiated in a group, in a trade union. So he says, oh, our workers here, the workers in the shoe factory, have accepted to say pay them higher wages, and they themselves are going to give you higher productivity. Do you see the logic there? It's good logic, isn't it? So, the main factor affecting the bargaining power of trade unions became the large numbers as more and more people were in employment and began to opt for joining trade unions to create trade union density and presence, which influenced better industrial relations processes. This only happened most likely in the industrialized countries, where when trade unions were allowed, they thrived and the trade worldwide was good. Over time, the workers' bargaining power became more systematic, you see. You know, when you start something and it starts working very well, you tend to start specializing on how to do it, isn't it? So it started becoming systematic, the economic environment improved, and the government policies began to recognize the contribution of trade unions towards economic growth and development. So, at some point, we should thank the evolution of trade unions because governments started recognizing that actually trade unions are not bad. They are also contributing towards economic development. This time, the nature of labor market was found to be very conducive to economic growth factors. That was the 20th, the 19th, and the 20th century. We are in which century are we? This one. 21st century. So it's not far away. It's not far away. But when we look at the trend now, we find that the more and the stronger the movement of collective power, the less stable the governments. Don't you think so? Have you heard in Bangladesh? Do you know what happened in Bangladesh? Recently, there was a lady prime minister, right? She started up something and the people didn't like it. They all rose up to the extent the whole country, they were up in arms. And they forced her to resign. And she ran away from Bangladesh. There's a new prime minister now. Collective power. It can sometimes be very, very dangerous. If it is not well controlled, it can be dangerous. Some examples I will give later. I will not give you the examples now. But some examples I will give later, which are showing that the same association of workers, the membership, increased membership of workers in trade unions can sometimes work effectively, like in this case, where it is contributing towards economic growth and development. But in other times, especially when the politics impinge too much on their business, it can be destructive. So some of the examples I will give later. Are we clear about how trade unions grow? Here, what we are trying to show is that, one, it is a natural phenomenon for workers who are not organized to feel the hardships in the work environment if they are not organized. And due to low wages, poor conditions, and long hours of work, they will start agitating and coming together to form an association or a relationship to talk to the people who are in power. And the examples we got was the 19th and 20th century, where this worked. When they came up to be together, they actually worked to contribute towards economic development until governments recognized the importance, important contribution of trade unions towards economic development. But we are also mindful to say this same power, if not controlled, can actually also lead to negative results. Any questions on how trade unions grow? Can you think of examples? Which unions have you ever heard in Malawi? None. Which one? Truck Drivers Union. Yes. You remember one time they agitated for the people for fuel. When they came together, they agitated for more wages. There was no fuel flowing. The same truck drivers. Oh, yeah. We have had a problem with passports in this country. In fact, to me, as a country, It's a shame. As a country, it's a shame. We should never have problems with issues like passports, driving licenses. Can you imagine? Marjan, identity cards. In fact, I questioned right from the beginning to say, how can you be, if I give you an identity card, it has an expiry date. You only expire as a citizen when you die, isn't it? Do you expire and you are still working? No. Anyway, they have now resolved to say the ID has no expiry date, except the system they employed is still printing an expiry date there. But they are still struggling to make sure that the next system they should remove. You can't, how do you expire as a citizen? Do you expire? You only expire when you are dead. So, yeah. Anyway, there are so many unions. I will give you the major ones. One, is Malawi Congress of Trade Unions. It's the biggest. This one has about 32 members, affiliates. Affiliates meaning they are smaller unions which all come together to form the Malawi Congress of Trade Unions. Some of the affiliates are ESCOM, Malawi Housing Corporation, Broadcasting, is it MBC, Teachers Union, Local Government Union. All these unions have come together to form Malawi Congress of Trade Unions. Pardon? Oh, it's already time? Yeah, it's past 12. Past? Why? Okay. Let me correct the attendance. I'll just finish off with the trade unions. Let me get the attendance. We have had no electricity for 5 days.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Give me another. No electricity. The whole of 4s, 36, 38. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I assume is that it appears today, which is Wednesday, isn't it? 10 to 12 is fine, isn't it? For us, isn't it?
Yes.
Then we will maintain 10 to 12. Because we are slotted in at 10 to 12 on Tuesday. But you opted for today, isn't it? I think if it is like that, we'll be able to get along very well. So I'm going to share the notes up to this, right? And then we meet again next week. Yeah. How is the assignment? It's fine. Eh? 2 pages is enough. Those of you who cannot write 2 pages, try to speak and you will learn how to speak. 2 pages. Yeah.